Welcome to another week on the presidential campaign trail, beginning with the realization we have still not hit the ceiling or the basement in what passes for news about a certain candidate. This time it's allegedly asking models to put on a bathing suit, kissing 21-year-old beauty pageant contestants, and making fun of women he deems overweight by asking them how much candy they've been eating. Kids, the ridiculous meter is now completely off the scale. Anger level off the scale for those air travelers wondering if they need to start wearing onesies to ensure they have clothes once they get to their destination. And there is plenty of anger at the Supreme Court this day for issuing a non-decision decision about Obamacare and the contraceptive mandate. The weekly visit to Outland, the TV weathercaster being trolled by pinheads screaming she's too sexy for her forecast, and another day daring the masses to dial us up and do what the other shows do not demand of their callers. Stay on point, make sense, and prove there is intelligence living in America. Let's see if you can take up the gauntlet, all right? I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hardline for Monday, May 16th, 2016.
I think everybody's become familiar with the comments that Trump has made about women in public, from the campaign podium, from Twitter. And what we wanted to do was really kind of go behind the scenes and examine how Donald Trump has behaved with women in private, not just in recent years, but going back to his days at the military school in the 1960s. So that was our intent, and we gathered a variety of voices. And our story is not just Roanne's account of her experience with him in the 1990s. It's the experience of many women.
As one who has been practicing journalism over his media career, unlike frauds who claim to be presenting both sides of an issue, yet play to the lowest common denominator in every audience, I can tell you there is often nothing more amusing than hearing somebody call a report or investigation by a reputable media source as a hit piece. Can't believe I just did that. Because in general, anything that doesn't kiss the derriere of its subject can be viewed by people as something unfavorable. That's what journalism is all about, finding and reporting the facts, no matter where they lead you. Despite what many might believe, the New York Times is known as a reputable, solid source for journalism, most of the time, save for the editorial and opinion pages where anything goes, and it almost exclusively goes politically left. What the Times unveiled this weekend in their article about Donald Trump left them open for charges of a smear campaign instead of reporting something new. Because while plenty of people believe the idea has merit, seeking to drive home the opinion that Donald Trump never met a woman he didn't like that he could control, their lead individual in the article is snapping back, which one might expect from one who dated the Donald. So let's get to it. He is former Democratic senatorial aide and now contributor at The Hill, Brent Budowsky, joined by veteran columnist for the Fiscal Times, LizPeek. I want to thank you both for joining us. And Liz, I'm going to begin with you. Crossing the line, how Donald Trump behaved with women in private was the article in the New York Times everybody is talking about today. The first young lady they talked about was Roanne Brewer-Lane, then a 26-year-old model. They talked about her experience in Mar-a-Lago. She was right on the morning shows this morning saying they got it all wrong. They lied to me. Donald Trump claiming it's nothing more than a hit piece. But let me ask you, I'm sure you've seen it. Did they miss the mark entirely here, or is there something we need to pay attention to?
Look, I think the New York Times, I did read this piece yesterday morning, first thing, huge banner headline. I thought, oh boy, now they've really, found out some really salacious material, and this is going to be greatly embarrassing. I read it, and then I read it again because I could not believe how vapid and empty this piece was. They talk about how they interviewed dozens of women going back decades. I've seen this before. In a news organization where they expend a tremendous amount of time and energy on an idea that they think is really going to be a blockbuster, and at the end of the day, they have nothing. And honestly, I'm kind of shocked, knowing Trump's reputation as a playboy and so forth, that they didn't find anything. And in fact, what they found was a lot of women basically talking about how he promoted women within his corporations because they worked hard, he admired their work ethic, etc. I thought it was unbelievably weak and basically totally at odds with what was meant to be a real pot stirrer of a headline. So in my view, honestly, shame on them.
And I will admit this, that if the article, and you read it as well, and Brent, I'm going to ask you about this as well, there were a couple of things in there like Temple Taggart, the 21-year-old Miss Utah, saying that Donald Trump kissed her right on the mouth. She found that, gross. We have the Miss Teen USA pageant in 1997 asking Miss Universe at the time, "Don't you think my daughter's hot? She's hot, right?" And people saying that's creepy. Come on, Brent, look, we're all adults here, for crying out loud. This is ridiculous. There's nothing new here. There's nothing we haven't talked about, nothing we haven't even commented on. You've been around a while, Brent. Is it possible that the New York Times just helped to hand a big victory to Donald Trump and move him forward even more?
No, I don't think it helped Trump. I don't think it hurt Trump. I think it bored everybody. I generally agree with what Liz just said. You read the headline, it was put on the front page. I would guess it was 4,000, 5,000 words, 2 full pages on the inside of the paper. And I'm interrupting my Sunday morning coffee reading this stuff, and I'm waiting for the punchline, and there was no punchline. 2/3 of the story was negative about Trump. Pretty much what we already knew the way he behaved. 1/3 of the story was positive about Trump, that he promoted some strong women in his company, which is also factually true. But there was nothing here that was worthy of anything like that. It was a minor story for the style section, not front page of the New York Times, would be my take.
So then, Liz, moving forward, we think about journalism here. We think about going after real stories here. There's nothing there. We get that. Why would the New York Times spend and waste so much time when you've got to admit, whether you love or hate Donald Trump, there's a lot of things out there that you could actually be focusing on this man? Why would they waste the time?
Well, honestly, the New York Times in the last few years has become this sort of second echo of whatever comes out of the Obama White House and now the Hillary Clinton campaign. Hillary Clinton is out there talking about how Donald Trump doesn't treat women well, and she's going to be, a really strong advocate for women. I tell you the truth, I think it was a huge mistake, because by opening this door about how men treat women and sort of make unwanted sexual overtures or not, how can anyone not be reminded of Bill Clinton, Oval Office, Monica Lewinsky on her knees?
Good point.
I apologize for raising it, but as far as I'm concerned, they've opened that door, and really, how stupid can you get? So, again, I think what happened is the Times thought, wow, we're going to investigate this, have a lot of hot stuff to talk about, and they didn't find it. So they had wasted all those resources. They decided to run the piece anyway, and it just fell flat.
It's embarrassing. The New York Times needs to be embarrassed for their reporters, and the reporters actually need to think about maybe writing for the National Enquirer at this point, if this is the best that they can do. Let's move on to something here a little more substantive, if you will. This weekend, Reince Priebus was asked about his thoughts of a Mitt Romney third-party run. He made it very clear, and he used the word suicide in the answer. Here's what he said.
It's a suicide mission, because you're not only changing and throwing out 8 years of the White House, but you're also throwing out potentially generations on the Supreme Court. Look, we could have up to 3 justices change over in the next 8 years, and this is a suicide mission. It is not right, and I think what people should do is take the Paul Ryan approach, which is to work with Donald Trump and find out whether or not there's common ground.
Brent, is it fair to say that everybody on the left is actually on their knees right now? They're praying to their God, whatever it may be, going, please, please have a third party. Please do something like this, because we'd love it to happen. It would only help the Democrats.
Oh, I think that's fair to say, that Democrats are hoping there's a third party. I will say, though, a lot of people in the main media have missed the point of the third party. What the point is to win enough electoral votes to take the election to the House of Representatives. If either Hillary or Donald then does not have enough electoral votes because of the third party. The House of Representatives is controlled by Republicans, as we know, and they would pick the president. That is what the strategy is behind the scenes. I'm not saying it'll work or it won't, but that's what the plan is. So it doesn't matter if the candidate can get on a ballot in Texas, for example, if they can get on in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, etc. That's the plan. But yeah, no doubt about it, Democrats are hoping for it, but Democrats don't get a vote in the matter. And I doubt it'll happen, but we'll just have to see.
Liz, what do you think about that strategy?
I think it's a terrible idea. I think totally look, I think Paul Ryan is taking the right approach. Talk to Trump. I know there are people like Larry Kudlow and Steve Moore now who are beginning to work with him a little bit. He's a little bit of a blank slate in terms of policy. He's got 2 or 3 big ideas, immigration, trade, and a couple of others. But really, in terms of a sort of fleshed out economic policy or heaven knows foreign affairs, he's open to suggestion. And in my view, he brings to this party a lot of energy and excitement out there. The Republicans have been talking about building the tent. Here's an opportunity to do that. Let's make sure he's got some policy chops that have been, given to him by some of these people. And I think he'll be a pretty strong candidate.
Speaking about third-party run, encouragement for a Bernie Sanders third-party run is coming from a very unlikely source. Donald Trump sent this out on Twitter. Bernie Sanders being treated very badly by the Dems. The system's rigged against him. Oh, here we go again. He should run as an independent. Run, Bernie, run. Hey, Liz, this comes as Donald Trump has basically said he's going to have a no-holds-barred campaign against Hillary Clinton. Hillary's beginning her assault. Her PACs are going to spend about $6 million in attack ads. I got about 60 seconds for you here, Liz, because I know you got to leave a little bit early here. We got to make sure you make your appointment here. But what about this? Do you fear at this point that when Donald Trump says no holds barred, women coming in for Hillary Clinton, the PACs coming in for all this money, we haven't seen anything yet when it comes to the sleaze?
Well, look, I think there's plenty to attack Hillary Clinton on that doesn't have to get into the mud. I think Donald Trump hopefully will find middle ground here and not make it all about mudslinging. But in terms of encouraging Bernie Sanders to run, look, he's not going to do that, I don't think. But it's a reminder to Bernie Sanders followers that they are really not on board with Hillary Clinton, or an exhortation to them to not get on board with Hillary Clinton. And by the way, if Hillary doesn't win in Kentucky and it basically loses Oregon, Bernie Sanders has won an awful lot of what would be considered blue states, not necessarily those two, but blue states in the election. Hillary's won a lot of red states. Bernie Sanders supporters and Bernie Sanders have to kind of really look at this, and if he wins California, he's got a pretty strong case that he's the better candidate. So I'm not surprised he's staying in it. It's a tough thing for Hillary.
25 seconds to you, Brent. Is it fair to say that Democrats, you guys got to be scared spitless about Bernie Sanders running third party? You split things up and it's going to get bad for you.
No, he ain't going to do it. And I got to disagree with Liz. Donald Trump is an ignoramus who doesn't know a bloody thing about most of the important issues. He flip-flops and changes his position almost every day on big issues. I think he's an incompetent on substance. And right now, Republicans are doing the biggest bailout of his campaign because he can't spend the money on his own campaign that he promised. The factor of Bernie is minor compared to that in November.
We will leave it there and come back and do it again. Brent Budowsky, LizPeek, it is always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. We're going to talk to you momentarily because everything we have talked about right here, plus a whole lot more. It's time for you to get on the lines right now. 1-877-Newsmax. 1-877-Newsmax. Because we not only have to talk about this, there's the New York Times piece, there's the third-party candidacy going on here, and oh yeah, by the way, there happens to be the Supreme Court and a nice 4-4 decision today. We'll get to all that. 1-877-Newsmax when you join us right here on The Hardline.